Hello and welcome to Views and Reviews. In this episode, we will be discussing rules in women's football. Joining me today is Managing Director of Next Gen Sport Solutions, Reece Land. Welcome, Reece. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
And not too bad, thank you. Yeah, need a haircut, but apart from that, we're all right. So your company specialise in the representation and career management of elite individuals within sport all over the UK and America and Europe as well. But you're only one of the only management companies worldwide that specialise in women's football. Why did you decide to focus on women's football, and how did you get into it?
It was sort of off the back of a chance meeting with Arsene Wenger that I bumped into at Arsenal versus Chelsea under 21s match or under 18s, I can't remember. But it was at the Arsenal training ground. So I just had a 3 or 4 minute conversation with him at half time. And I think the women's team were training sort of over at the far side. And I just remember him saying to me that women's football will be the next big thing. So I'm sort of driving back up to Leeds from Colney, the Arsenal training ground, thinking, let's go into women's football. I think when Arsene Wenger is telling you something, I think sometimes you're a little bit stupid not to take the advice. So,
wow, that's a pretty high up person to say something like that. I mean, he wasn't wrong, was he?
Definitely not. The funny thing is, I've not actually met him since that day, but I would like to meet him again and sort of say thank you to him. But like I say, I think Arsene Wenger is just a messiah within football. So when he's advising or when he's giving his opinion on something, 99.9% of the time, I think you've got to take that opinion. So he knows what he's talking about. So
yeah, definitely, yeah. So there's quite a few issues to deal with, but we'll start with maternity leave first. Obviously, former goalkeeper Shaban Chamberlain retired in July 2019 after cancelling a contract at Man United due to having a baby in the January. It was then revealed that in her Football Association standard player contract, the one that's signed by everybody in the Women's Super League and Championship, that she had no guarantee of maternity leave. And the FA confirmed that the standard league contracts didn't include any measures dealing with pregnancy, but they said that they knew clubs were looking at it on an individual basis. Obviously, the PFA, Professional Football Association, which worked with the FA on the current contracts, said its women's football department aimed to tackle the issue by launching a committee with the FA and players, similar to the one that exists for the male players. And obviously, FIFA have announced new measures in November that will lead clubs to facing fines and transfer bans if they discriminate against players during pregnancy. Obviously, that's clearly a step in the right direction, but what else do you think can be done?
I've had several clients that have fallen pregnant during the season, so I can only speak on behalf of the experiences that I've had representing these clients, and all my experiences have been positive, and the clubs have been very, very supportive. I think the fact that there wasn't a clause in, when was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, is maybe alarming when you think about it. The fact that in women's football there's not a pregnancy clause or anything within the contract. So maybe that's a little bit of lack of understanding from the governing bodies of the industry that we're in. But the fact that that's now changing, I think it does show that women's football and the FA and the governing bodies have adapted to an issue that they found. But like I said, I can only speak in terms of the experiences that I have, and the clubs have been very, very supportive. We have to bear in mind that footballers are employees. So the statutory employee rights that the players have in terms of holiday pay, maternity pay, sickness, they are standard employee rights. So I think it would be alarming if the clubs didn't support their players or employees. I don't see what the difference is between a footballer falling pregnant and a first team coach that's female within a football club falling pregnant. It's the same concept. They're all employees. They're still part of the infrastructure. So, like I say, I can only speak on positive experiences that I've had.
And obviously, talk about lack of understanding. Another issue is one that England star Lucy Bronze brought up about the squad's menstrual cycles, which she says could be the extra inch between World Cup success and failure. She was speaking about the subject in the football podcast from UEFA, Together We Play Strong. And she said that herself and her Lionesses teammates knew very little about the impact of their periods on performance heading into the 2019 finals. And if they had known that, it would have given them an extra performance boost. And compared to the men's game, there hadn't been any research. They've been focusing more on researching the men game compared to the women's. Have you had any players come to you with this issue, and what do you think can be done to help?
To be honest, I have, and I've got a good relationship with all of my clients, I believe, and in terms of they feel comfortable in coming to me, knowing that it's not going to go anywhere else. But it is something that I've come across. It's something that I probably come across weekly or fortnightly at least, in terms of clients coming to me saying, Reece, this has happened, or there's this issue. What do you think I should do? But I think we need to recognise here that Lucy Bronze within the England setup, this is elite level football. When you look at the men's side, everything is driven by analysis and data and numbers and statistics. Anything at elite level should be driven by statistics, and the sports science department now within football clubs are unbelievable. There's some clubs now that have got 30 people within a sports science department. So if there's not one person within that department that cannot recognise that the menstrual cycle can have a positive impact if managed correctly, or the training schedules are tailored accordingly, I don't know why we're only just recognising this. Surely this should have been recognised 5 or 10 years ago. I believe it's something that the US national team have been implementing for quite a few years. Maybe that's part of the reason why they've had so much success. But the fact that, again, that change is now happening and clubs and national teams now starting to recognise where we can start to get that extra 1% or that extra inch to gain success, I think it's only a positive step in the right direction.
Yeah, because of course, obviously, on the men's side, they don't have this, so there's nothing. I don't see why they wouldn't help the women's game if it's would help them as well, because obviously that brings more money as well. And talking of money, go on. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I'm saying absolutely. You've just said there about the men's team, and like I say, there's sports science departments within clubs that have got 30 people within a department. Do you need all 30 people working on the men's team?
Yeah,
probably not. Can you not divide that? Can we have 15 people? We're promoting equality here. We're pushing for equality, not just in terms of salary, but also within the infrastructure. Can we get the same level of marketing? Can we get the same level of sports science? If there's 30 people within a department, can we have 15 on the women's? Can we have 10 on the women's? If it's just to start with 10. And I think that's where the equality sort of push that we're looking at is coming from. It's not just on the salaries, it's part of the infrastructure. So if there's 15 people within a sports science department, all focusing on women's football, surely it's not going to be too long before they recognise things such as menstrual cycles can gain that extra 1%.
Let's hope so, because obviously then this will, as I said, bring more money into the game, which is a big one. Obviously they had the WSL deal as well. But talking about money, in the FA Cup, for example, the winning men's club in the 2021 season will earn 1.8 million, while the women's winners will receive 25,000. And we know that equal pay won't be the same for men and women. Obviously, the FA said that for England, they do receive equal pay, but equal prize money is not the same as equal pay, but it can grow a sport. And FIFA has said that prize money will at least be doubled for the 2023 Women's World Cup. And it makes you wonder, like, if players get injured, for example, we know that ACL injuries occur much more in the women's game than the men's game. Renee Hector, for example, she doesn't play full-time football and is therefore unable to join the Professional Football Association, who will be able to help her fund her surgery, and her club don't have the money to pay for it either. Do you have players coming to you with this issue as well?
If we're looking at the broadcasting rights, we're wanting equality not just on the finances, we're wanting equality away from the pitch as well. So if, for example, the BBC, let's say, covering the FA Cup, if they've got 2 matches televised in the men's FA Cup in the third round, let's televise 2 matches in the third round of the women's FA Cup as well. So I just want to sort of step away from the finances, because everyone in women's football is going to be banging this drum for equality in terms of finances. That's not going to happen overnight. But we're not just banging the drum on equality for finances. We want an equality on everything, away from, like, for example, the commercialization, the broadcasting. In terms of the ACLs that you've just mentioned, I find it hard to believe when some other clubs haven't got their money. There's players that have done ACLs in top Premier League clubs that can't afford £5,000, £10,000 to do a private ACL. But yeah, they've got men's players on £100,000 a week. It doesn't sit right with me. But I don't know. From a business point of view, they're probably going to argue that it's a separate limited company, so the revenue is not there for the women's team. But then if they are arguing that it's a separate limited company, then I find it hard to believe when they say we're fully integrated. When it's a separate limited company, you can't say it's a separate limited company and there's no revenue coming in, and then say we're all integrated, we're with a men's team, we're together. I just like a bit of consistency on that side. But again, we're not just pushing equality on the finances, we want an equality on everything, and a bit of consistency as well.
So obviously, you think that the men's side of the game, obviously we don't know if they can help, obviously because of different rules, but you think that if they could help, they should help?
Why wouldn't they want to? For me, if you've got a men's player, if a Premier League club is saying we're fully integrated with the women's team, we're fully supportive, and they've got a male player on £100,000 a week, but yet can't find £5,000 to send a female player for a private ACL surgery, it doesn't sit right with me. But like I say, they can't come out and say that we're fully supported, we're fully integrated, we're behind them, and then just sort of leave them on their own. Yeah. But I understand the commercialization on it. If a women's team haven't got 40,000 fans going weekly, we can't expect the same finances in terms of the salaries. We can't expect women's players on £100,000 a week when the women's team's only getting 200 fans there. For me, anyone that is arguing that case, it obviously hasn't run a business.
Yeah.
Any business cannot spend money if there's no money coming in. That's just simple economics on business. As
you said, I don't know what can be done, because if they don't have the people coming in to watch it or the money, especially with coronavirus as well, do you think that's affected, obviously, contracts or anything as well, and the women's game?
The first thing that women's game needs, it needs footfall through the doors. It needs people to go and watch the matches. It needs revenue from the gates. It needs revenue from the sponsorships, from the player shirt sales. Anything that the women's team can get in terms of revenue, because no business survives without revenue and gross profit. It's not a sustainable business model. That is what we need. The broadcasting rights are well and good, but we need revenue that's consistent. We can't expect revenue from Sky Sports and from BBC. We need sustainable revenue through season tickets, through shirt sales, through 12-month or 18-month or 2-year commercial sponsors. I think it's easy to sit here and say, we've got the broadcasting money coming in from Sky Sports. That's all well and good, but does any club really know how much money they're going to get from this broadcasting? Because if it's anything like the Premier League, it's going to be split up depending on the club. Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal are going to get more money than what Fulham get and Sheffield United get in terms of the men's side. So is it going to work the same on the women's side? Are Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal going to get more money than Bristol City and Birmingham and West Ham? Who knows? Because that information is not really being disclosed. When I spoke to the clubs don't know. So the clubs now can't sit here and say, we've got the broadcasting money coming in, because no one knows how much money is actually coming in to the clubs.
Do you think that's why you said about player shirt sales? For example, Tottenham getting Alex Morgan, that was maybe a potential, well, probably was to get more money into the game, which is, I suppose, good for them, and obviously with the Euros and the World Cup coming up, it's good to show off what the women's game has to offer.
Are you suggesting that Alex Morgan was a publicity stunt from Spurs?
Well, I think maybe. I don't know. Do you?
It'll be interesting to see the Spurs women limited company accounts when they come out, and it'll be interesting to see the breakdown on the commercial side of that. in terms of the shirt sales. And if we can get a full breakdown on their next set of annual accounts, you're not telling me that no one's bought an Alex Morgan Spurs shirt. So that should reflect in their annual accounts. If it's been a positive, Daniel Levy is a very, very good businessman. So I'm sure he will have been milking that. And rightly so, because if that gains revenue to the women's team, then we're on the right track to making it successful.
Reece, you've been absolutely fantastic. I know you're extremely busy, so I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on today.
No problem, anytime.